Whitey. Thanks so much for joining us from around the country. We've got one of our biggest audiences ever joining us today, which is great. And a special shout out to our families in Melbourne and Victoria. And obviously, the old COVID is bouncing around. Same with Sydney, getting a couple of little struggles there too. So hopefully those things all work out. I've got to come down to Sydney next week. So we'll make sure that all those things do check out right. The other thing too is a big shout out to everybody who's at the Better Business Summit in Adelaide. We're live streaming into there today. So g'day everyone, trust you well, and thanks for joining us there as well. Thanks for that. All righty. Today, we're going to talk about the best use of technologies, and we'll come to that shortly. But firstly, I want to say thanks to the sponsors who support us to enable us to bring all this stuff to you free. We really appreciate their support, and they're great people who look after us and make sure that we can deliver on the content that we do. So thank you to all of those that are sitting there backing the FBAA and ourselves in what we're doing. All right, well, there they are. Well, technology's running a little bit slow this morning. Must be the cooler weather, I think, something like that. That's okay. We will move on past that. So I'd like to welcome, joining me today, Martin Lam. And Martin, how are you going there, mate? You there in the background?
I'm here.
Here he is.
How are you?
There you go. Mate, I'm well. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, everybody, Martin's not 100% well at the moment. He's got a bit of a sore throat going on. We hope it's just the atypical sore throat, nothing more. So we're going to try not to put too much strain on Martin's voice today, but we're going to have a really engaging conversation. I'm really looking forward to having this chat with you today. So I think what we might do, Martin, as a starter, is tell me a little bit about Martin Lam. I want to know more of the Martin Lam story. So, mate, obviously what you do today, you haven't always done. So what's your career journey been like to get you to where you are today?
So just I guess by way of apologies. I'm usually very my voice is usually very rugged and manly. Today it's just a little bit more so. So just bear with me if I stop to sort of take a sip of tea or whatnot. I'm trying very hard right now. So
we all have our coffee, mate. It's harder today.
A little bit about me. Let's talk about me now, and then I can walk backwards in time a little bit for you and sort of go from there. So my current role is I'm the Chief Innovation Officer for the Lindy Group, and that encompasses, I guess, three mortgages businesses in Aussie home loans, in Lendi, and in domain home loans. And I think. I was talking to one of the guys that works for me yesterday, and we were talking about innovation and what that really means. And it's really for us and what we do and what I do. It's about solving problems. It's about solving everyday problems. It's not about for us in our business and in our approach. We're not necessarily looking at deep R&D on how we can use blockchain to solve whatever problem it is. It's just what are the problems that faces consumers? What are the problems that face brokers? And how do we solve them in better ways? And how do we bring more time back to people's lives? So that's sort of me as a sort of general nutshell. So that's sort of my rare area of responsibility. I think one of the other I don't know if it's a job title or not, Peter, but one of the other titles I carry with me is I'm also one of the co-founders of Lindy. We've been operating for sort of the last 7 or 8 years, and as starting as a small business, starting as a startup, I think a lot of the audience as mortgage brokers would know, you sort of do everything, right? Everything and anything, whatever you need to do to plug in the gaps. Over the years, I've done anything from running payroll through our back office systems, our back office process in general, all the way down to when we originally started this business going back in 2013. We said we had a vision for what a good consumer experience looked like, but you need to know the industry. And I actually started with one of my other co-founders, Sebastian. We actually started as loan writers, and so I spent the better part of 2013, 2014 writing loans. And I'm still an accredited loan writer today, so that's where we're at. I'm still a proud member of the. Yep.
So, mate, So journey back in history for me. I get what you do today. That's why you're here with us. I see you as a tech expert, and I've known Lindy from its beginning, and I know the journey you guys have been on. So this is why the conversation today is really important with you guys. But I want to know a bit more about Martin Lam. What was Martin Lam doing before Lindy? What did you do when you come out of school? If there was a time when you came to school, because you look a very young man compared to me, so you may have walked out of school and started Lindy for all I know. What was that? What was happening back beforehand? Tell me what that journey was. You did school, you got out of school. What did you do? Was this always your plan to be in broking?
Oh, Peter, I think you're flattering me. It's the filters on the webcam, mate. Look, I mortgage broking for me and for us as a sort of founding team was really wasn't, we didn't sort of set out to be the largest mortgage broker in the market. We just looked at opportunities in the market and consumer problems. And if I look back sort of my professional career, I sort of had aspirations for maybe for grander times. I actually, Peter, if you go back to my university days, I've got a degree in biochemistry and in immunology. So I one point in time I was going to be a researching scientist.
Yeah.
And so I sort of walked out of uni and sort of decided that wasn't quite for me. Sorry.
Yeah. But mate, that's an interesting background. There's a tip that I didn't know about you. I mean, from my point of view, I could fly planes before I could drive a car. I'd always planned to be a commercial pilot. I never planned to be doing anything like this, and the journey went off on its own little tangent. And it is what it is. And I think understanding journeys is a really important piece to getting to know people. So sort of, that university degree is actually really awesome. Whether you've continued down that path or not is irrelevant. So the journey is great. So what did you do? You did uni. Did you go into broking straight away, or did you do something else before?
No. As some of these whiz businesses do, with no real experience and unrelated sort of university degrees, I ended up being hired as a consultant, as a management consultant, and that's sort of how I cut my teeth in, or sort of my early career was working with large scale businesses in technology strategies in sort of various projects working on. So got a lot of exposure to different types of businesses, I guess, ways of working, things that work, things that don't work, and that's sort of, I did that for the better part of a good handful of years before I sort of said, that's probably not the way life works very well. In those sorts of industries, and even today, you tend to work relatively long hours for just, I guess, for the sort of return you see for what you're actually achieving, the change you're able to deliver. Being an external into organizations wasn't necessarily what I was built for, and sort of made a decision years in that what I really wanted to do, what was sort of driving me, was be able to deliver change, not just suggest it, be able to sort of drive real outcomes, and that was sort of the beginning of sort of coming together with the other guys.
Yeah, excellent. Oh, mate, that's really good. So tell me, and you made a very good point. We work very, very long hours in this industry, right? What does Martin Lam do to relax?
Wow. I don't know, Peter. Between working and I've got two little ones. I don't know. My wife says I can't call it babysitting anymore if they're yours. So I'm a pretty simple guy. Just a walk along the beach, go for a swim. I have a small issue in I guess my affinity to collect motorcycles. So I do a little bit of motorcycle riding on the weekend, and that's about it.
We need to talk. So okay, here's where the conversation goes. What do you ride?
Okay, so I've got I might start with the little one first. I've got a little 125 mini bike, Pete, one of the smallest road resistance bikes. just between here and the beach and the shops gets me by. And then I've got a sort of 500cc sort of sports cruiser, a daily rider, and then I've got a bike that's probably too big and too dangerous for me.
What's the 500? What's the 500? What is it? A Honda?
It's a Honda. Yeah, I've got a Honda 500, and then I've got a Ducati, a Ducati 1000S. Yeah, that's a little bit scary, a little bit too big, but it's red and it looks nice.
Ah, nice. So I ride a 2020 Indian Challenger these days. So 1800 cc's, comes in at weight, fully fueled at just under 370 kilos. She's a big bike. Now, the reason why I'm interested in this, by the fact we have a common interest in motorbikes, going into the second half of this year, I'm going to be launching a new initiative, a mental health initiative for people who ride motorbikes. So I'm starting up an industry motorcycle riders group. So my friend, you're on the list. We're going to get out, we're going to ride our bikes. Beautiful. Just about everybody who rides a bike is saying the same thing. And I've got people from all around the country who want to get involved. And it's there for our mental health and also a common interest group. So more on that later, but there you go. I'm glad I asked the question, Mr. Lam. That's excellent. And I'm getting things sent through to me at the moment. We are live at Better Business. So g'day, everybody. They're watching and they're learning something new. Hey, let's get on to some of the questions we've got here. And we spoke a little bit beforehand, and some of this is the answers to some of these maybe not exactly the way the questions are phrased, but we'll work through it. So first one I've got here is, what do you feel is the best software to secure document retrieval from clients? Now, it may not be the best software, but are there elements that you, and not knowing exactly the process you guys use, but that whether it be through the Aussies group or the Lindy group or whatever, they say, well, we use this and it works well, or there are key elements maybe that you might say, if you're using something for document retrieval from clients, this is a good way to think about it or to go about it. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. I think document retrieval, as I think most of, there's a couple of sort of pain points in the industry, and I think document retrieval is one of them. How do you get documents out of customers? And usually that's the thing that takes the longest amount of time, right? Trying to get that last pay slip, or trying to find that last year's payment statement or PAYG summary or whatever it might be. Look, I think there's a couple of things, and what I hear when I talk to customers and brokers, I think is the first part is sort of security. How do you in whatever tool set you choose, how do you help customers feel secure in what they do? And that seems to be, as you know, the advent or the rollout of sort of the bank statement, the whatever providers are out there. I think a lot of the reservations I hear out in the market from a broker side, not necessarily from the consumer side, is how do I make the customer feel comfortable and how do I make people safe in going through those processes? So when you're looking at a tool set and selecting that, it's all, what does it look like from a consumer standpoint? I think from my perspective and our approach to documents has always been, there's this sort of underlying nuance of how many times you want to ask the customer for documents. So, first you want to get their documents, you understand, what do they qualify for, etc. And then there's this set of lender specific documents on the top of that. And then there's, documents that are specific to the customer's particular application. So what I see a lot, and I think when you're looking at tools like that, and the tools that we build and we use sort of solve some of those problems, is how do you get to a point where the document list that gets generated is actually specific to the application and specific to the customer, and something that they can go back to. So what's the point in asking for 3 months transaction statement if the bank doesn't need it anymore because you've got I don't know, your NMS is above a certain number or whatever it is, lender specific policy, things like that. That's probably the challenge that I see with some of the third party software that's out there. And then I think the other side is I see that some of the software allows for and I see brokers and the admin staff sort of retyping or re-entering using those third-party softwares, the same message over and over again to different customers. So how do you send those links, and how do you send those requests out to customers? So when you look at those tools, I think that there's a problem that how do you how do you bring, you know, the document checklist, etc., back into that world? And the other one is, what does it look like? You know, if you're a customer and you weren't necessarily very tech savvy, how does it all look, and how much work is there to send it every time you do this?
Yeah, and look, that's a very interesting point too, because I must admit, I've never thought about it from the receiving end. You know, what does the customer think of this? You send them this link or checklist of things you require. How does it play out with them? Do you guys generally use software for document retrieval? I'm not asking what it is, but generally, is it used?
So Peter, like, you know, with you know, software, we've actually built bespoke software over the last handful of years to deal with document retrieval because of the underlying problem that I sort of just posed, which is, how do you generate a consistent customer experience that they can sort of trust? And the other one that's arguably more important and more complex is, how do we make sure that what we ask the customer for is the stuff we actually need? So, you know, as you understand things about their application, etc., you know, there's no reason in my mind, anyway, that, you know, brokers, you know, that's not where we add value. You know, memorizing document checklists is not how we add value to our customers. You know, why do we want brokers doing that? How do we automate those processes?
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, it's just funny, but go on.
I was just going to say, it was only recently I was talking to one of our regional brokers within the Aussie network, and I remember talking to her, and, you know, we've got a lender on panel that requires a Medicare card. You know, nobody requires a Medicare card anymore except this lender, and she hadn't written one of these loans for a while, and it turned into, you know, almost a delayed settlement because it was something that we just missed, and it wasn't on the document checklist, or something that she missed. You know, I sort of said, well, you know, how do we win? And is that really the value we provide customers by memorizing what each individual lender needs, or, you know, should we be prompting? And that's the reason we went custom.
Yeah. It's an interesting debate, and like I said before, it's not something I'd actually stopped and thought about it from the customer side of things. And it's all well and good for all of us who live and breathe this every day of the week, but somebody who does it once or twice in a lifetime, I imagine it can be a little confronting. So part of the value as to why we do what we do as brokers, and guide them through that journey. Before I go on to some of the questions, mate, what I'd like to get, you know, what I want to ask you is, what are your thoughts as to where technology is today and where you think technology will go in the future? I mean, a lot of people think, oh, you know, is technology going to replace brokers in the face-to-face environment? My viewpoint is no. You know, you may do, over the years, screen stuff will be more common. So just interviews and so on. And I'm not talking tomorrow either. I'm talking, you know, maybe 5-10 years out. I mean, screen gets used a lot more now, but I'd be interested in views, because I've got the viewpoint, and you may say, why do you know you're wrong? But to me, the development of tech is more about doing the grunt work, not replacing the broker. I'd be interested in your thoughts on that, but also where you see maybe in 10-20 years time what you think technology might be doing in our space in that period of time, if you've got some thoughts on that, of course. That was a question without notice. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I like that. I think it comes back to, Peter, you know, what do we think? So I think the first thing is probably identifying what we think the value that a mortgage broker brings to a customer is, or their clients or a borrower. You know, what does a mortgage broker do? They help provide choice. They help coach customers on savings. They help them understand credit criteria. They help structure loans. That's why customers go to mortgage brokers, right? They help you remove the complexity that you have to worry about. What's available out there, and how do I apply for a loan with bank A or B or C? You know, here's the best loan for you, and here's why, and here's how you should structure it because you've got some debt consolidation, or hey, you know, you need to get onto a savings plan because you don't have quite enough deposit. And if you save a little bit of money, you can save X dollars in LMI or whatever it might be. That's the value of a mortgage broker. Then you sort of go, as you say, the grunt work. I don't think anyone out there is talking about brokers adding value to customers because they're the best at data entry, because they've got the best memory in the world.
Yeah, you're probably right.
And so I wholeheartedly agree with you. I see I see technology as enabling us to do the things that generally and genuinely deliver value for customers. And if it delivers value for customers, it delivers that value for brokers. So how do we remove, I think you call it grunt work, and I think internally we call it the $20 an hour task. How do we take as many of those things away from a broker as possible? And it could be, it could be that it enables you to be more efficient and see more customers, or maybe it just enables people to spend more time with their families. But there's a whole bunch of activity that we generate today that just doesn't, if you told the customer, here are the 5 things I do for you, how much, if you really divide that up and you go, okay, well, what's the most amount of my time that I spend? Probably 80% of the time that you spend on a customer is not customer facing and not valuable.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's and these conversations roll around different circles, so it's always interesting to get more ideas to that table to understand where things go in the future, because I don't see, especially not in my lifetime, but my lifetime is a bit more limited, say, than your lifetime. You're a bit younger than me. But yeah, I can't see the face-to-face component going away, because we are human beings, and COVID is part of the proof of that, in that we all want to get back face-to-face. It's a part of our genome, it's part of our makeup. And so disconnecting that is a long, long way away, if it ever happens at all, except for whether you call it the $20 task or I call it the grunt work. Those things, most certainly, I think technology will continue to develop, speed up that process, and make it a much more enjoyable experience from that turnaround time, if I can say, not the human time, but from the mechanical piece at the back end. I'm just worried, though, that maybe some of the tech isn't as good as what it could be. And we have a lot of people coming to us talking about some of the systems. I won't use brand names, but some of the lodgement systems are a bit clunky or have issues with it. Well, these things, do you believe, one, do you see that? But two, given we get a lot of feedback on it, are these things going to develop and enhance and get it right? Because I think brokers at the moment, we all know, are sitting around the high 50, 60% generation of or origination of loan applications. I believe that number will get to 70 and 80% in my lifetime. 70% is an easy one. Do that in the UK. But it needs technology to be right to deliver it, so that the customer has this wonderful experience. They get to meet a wonderful person who goes with them, helps on an important part of their journey, and everything behind the scenes just snapping into place and working well. But I got a gut feeling some of that's not so slick as what it should be. What's your thoughts?
Well, I agree with you, Peter. If I didn't agree with you, I probably wouldn't have a day job. So that's the first one.
Oh, well, as head of tech, yeah, you want to keep building and improving, yeah.
So look, I think, and I didn't, and one of the other roles I've done, I sort of involved in a number of sort of different industry forums, and one that's probably more obscure for the average, industry participant is I've been on the board of an organization called Lindsey, which is the data standards body for mortgage applications for, I don't know, I'm going to get this one wrong, but somewhere between 3 to 5 years. And one of the challenges,
been going for over 20 years.
Yeah. I haven't been involved in that long.
You're not old enough to be involved for 20 years.
But like I said, I've got great filters on my webcam. But look, look, I think there's an increasing frustration, I think, as over the last handful of years between, some of the regulatory changes or regulators' expectations and lenders' expectations that have been driven through. There's been more of a divergence in the amount of data and the types of data, and the way that lenders describe the data. And so what that's turned into, and I think I'm sort of hearing your question, is what that's translated into is the broker essentially has to ask the customer questions and get them enough information for a loan application. When they get to lodging the loan application with the bank, all of a sudden they've got to go rekey all that information, and maybe there's additional information, or maybe it's like, rather than asking for 12 expenses, we're now asking for 23 expenses. And I come back to, I think there's a technology challenge there, and the technology challenge is I guess each of these applications describing the same things in so many different ways, and what that translates into is just brokers having to do more work. And again, I come back to, you know, I think it's not just a software issue, it's a wider industry issue, Peter. It's about, you know, whether banks really and our lenders really think that they win by collecting data in slightly different ways, and that's the starting point. And I think we've seen that over the last handful of years with the expenses. That transpired somewhat through the compliance questions or the broker interview guide. There's work to do, and I can see a path forward, but it's not easy.
Yeah. So, mate, I have a question from Adelaide, and you may or may not be able to see that. So there we go. There's a good crowd over there sitting at Better Business Summit. So shout out to everybody and welcome. And there's a few people, but we have questions coming out of Adelaide. So I'm going to ask you one of these. We've seen the mortgage industry moving more towards the AI, so getting the grunt work done. And obviously a topical conversation of today are SLAs. Now, I tend to, you know, this is saying, well, should SLAs, or will they improve with better technology? And my head would be, yeah, well, I imagine that would be a definite yes. And also then push to being more commonplace, or actually to be accepted, is with digital signatures on mortgage docs. I don't know what you guys see a lot. I mean, Lindy, you guys have been cracking it forever. You've now taken over Aussies and you own that. You're seeing a broad spectrum of things going on in the marketplace. What are your thoughts in regards to where tech's heading with it? Will it or won't it improve SLAs? And where do we see things going on the digital signature sides? Because again, these things in my mind all line up that broker value proposition and increasing market share to 70 to 80% if we get these things right. But what are you seeing at the moment, and what's your gut thoughts on where this is progressing to in the not too distant future, hopefully sooner than later?
Yeah, look, I think our merger with Aussie's been really interesting in talking with Aussie brokers. I think, you know, I've been, you know, talking with mortgage brokers for a number of years, being in the industry, and I think I feel like the pains and the questions that everyone has is the same. So that's been fantastic. It's been good to validate that. Look, I think that there are obviously long-term solutions and lenders, and when we think about SLAs, we're really talking about lender side processes. And one of those, you know, you can implement technology to automate some or many of the processes, and that's a longer term journey. And whether that is, you know, automated decisioning that lots of lenders are implementing and incrementing on, or whether that's, you know, OCR, so optical character recognition over the top of documents so they can extract the information, etc. There are a number of these things existing within lenders already. But underlying, you know, my personal opinion underlying some of the service level challenges is a people process issue. You know, I think we still at the industry level still see too many credit assessors second guessing or second guessing sort of what the broker is necessarily sort of submitting. I think there are a bunch of questions that occur and things that are asked for that are not part of the standard, I guess, credit policy. And that's what sort of blows that turnaround times in my mind. I think that there's a combination. I think on our side of the fence, I think that there are opportunities in the broking space where, you know, if we do use technology to verify or validate some of this information or documents, then, you know, can that technology or can that process be verified or validated by the bank so that the bank doesn't need to redo it? So how do we remove? Are there possibilities if we start sort of certifying some of our processes and putting it in? Are there possibilities that we can remove that from the bank requirements? And I think that might have some impact into service levels. But I'm optimistic. But I think, you know, within a reasonable well, what did you say? Within my reasonable lifetime, I think I need some help in that one.
So we'll call that cautiously optimistic. How's that?
I think your second question is around electronic documents and on mortgage docs. I think that's been adopted. There are some state-specific issues with that around the national mortgage form, but I think that's just I mean, that part of the process in my mind, probably arguably not where our challenges and our pains are right now, but it does help a lot. I think, I think when we think about electronic signatures, we should be setting broader horizons, and the sorts of things that I spend time talking to lenders about, and the sorts of things that we implement are, looking at, not just the signature at the end, the signature at the beginning, and every single signature we want from the customer. What are we actually doing? Are we actually asking people to validate signatures, or are we just collecting consents? And if we're doing that, why can't we just, on the application form, not just the mortgage doc, on the application form, why can't we get that as electronic? Those are the things that save us time.
Yeah, exactly, and it pulls an end-to-end fulfillment. I mean, and this to me, I mean, Australia is a lot more advanced in this area than, say, America is, and we've done. You're probably aware I chair an international federation, so we're talking to the US every month, as well as a handful of other countries. And when it comes to our tech capabilities in Australia, we're far more advanced. So US is really badly clunky and disconnected at some really critical points in the system. But we look at ourselves, so wait on, this should be able to go end to end. It makes sense, as you're saying, with the signature. It's a signature on the application, and right the way through, these things should flow, and they don't. And it always concerns me as to what the why is. And I know part of the why with some of the process is bank legacy systems. So their tech is old in some areas and it doesn't always connect the way it should do. But, I've heard that for probably 20 years. I think it's time we moved on. Yeah, we need to progress. We need to develop. And all of a sudden we're going to start to look like the US if we're not careful, and they'll overtake us, which I'm not up for. I'd rather be the leader, not come from behind. And these things need to play, and it happened through COVID. And I know there may be lenders floating around at the Better Business there in Adelaide, so I'm not taking shots here, but I heard this from lenders last year when COVID hit and they had all the offshore processes and that all shit themselves, right? They all collapsed. They had to shut that down. They tried to bring everything onshore. And we had blowout in timeframes on SLAs out to, well, we were getting examples up to 50 to 60 days just to pick up a loan file at the peak of this. And with our conversations with banks and the FBAA Association, we were told, oh, we're going to build new technology. We're going to put on more staff locally, blah, 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 blah. Yet we still suffer with it today. And I'm worried that, you look back in the past where 20 years ago, things were meant to be improved outside of legacy systems. We see what's happened in the last 12 months with COVID. We've got to get past the lip service. We've actually got to deliver because it's for the benefit of everyone. And it's not just, enabling brokers to go from 60% market share to 80% market share. There's a whole bunch of borrowers out the back in there who just want a great experience to get a home loan. Yeah. They don't want to be dicked around by people. They don't want to have this clunky system. They just want to have this lovely fluid system that just works. And I think for the betterment of, and the benefit, I should say, of the borrower, the consumer, that's what we need to have in focus. And I think at times we lose that. We think about self all the time. We forget about the person that's actually making us money. Let's not be crass about it, but at the end of the day, if a person doesn't borrow money, the lender doesn't make a cent, right? You've got to get the money out the door. You've got to lend it. That's what the game's about. So the better that experience is, the more that expands and grows. And
Peter, you're absolutely right. And the conversation we're having today is about, I think if I was sitting on the bank side and, I'm, always try and empathize with everybody in the room. But if you're sitting on the bank side, you say, well, what about these additional risks? How do we mitigate these risks? And that's where technology comes in. There's no reason we can't mitigate risk on identifying consumers, on consents, on authorities. Yep. You don't have to do it. And arguably, is it a better way for us to collect signatures electronically? So we've got, a timestamp, we've got a view of how you were identified, or is it better just for someone to just scribble on a piece of paper? And just getting that sort of mindset through is I think some of the challenges.
Yeah, look, that's a really great point too. With the technology driving things, the desire to have, things can be audited in a much more effective and efficient and probably a more legal manner, in the fact that these things are timestamped to the point it's just not date, it's time down to the second. And so to go, it happened then, unquestionably so, here's the report on it. Whereas Otherwise, you hopefully have got diary notes. Everybody, keep your diary notes. You still need to do that. And hopefully you put a date on it. And I always used to put a time on mine when I was doing my brokering and lending. So I'd always have a date and time when I was making the diary note. But it's a clunky, old-fashioned way of doing things. We need to grow and evolve. We're doing a part of why we're having this conversation now is we're in the middle of a series that we're doing digitally as a part of our PD day. So we do 2 face-to-faces during the year and a digital one in the middle, and our conference at the end of July. Quick plug, FBAA National Industry Conference, Friday the 30th of July. Be there. Best thing ever. We got COVID approval for 1,000 people to attend. So yeah, let's rock and roll.
I'll be there with you, Peter. I always look forward to that event, so I'll be there with you. I missed last year.
Did you? Yeah, well, so did we. 2019 was a good year, but mate, we've got. It's going to be. 2019 was the most spectacular year we had. This is bigger again. So make sure you stay Friday night for the gala dinner and awards, because that's when the party is. I always used to say it's not a piss up. Yeah, maybe a little bit these days. That's all right. I'm getting older. But it'll be a great time and great content during the day. But yeah, we need to evolve and grow. And it's people like you and I saw from the beginning when you started Lindy and you started to move that, how you guys have grown. And I've seen it with many other with aggregators and other people. But it's got to have the foundations right. And we look at the compliance burden that's put on industry, and we look at what's happening at the moment with design and distribution obligations. And although that's yet to roll out and brokers are still getting their heads around it, but it's not a broker problem, it's a lender problem. But we've got some work to do at the back end of this, but it's all got to be driven by tech for it to be done right and to create that audit trail that you mentioned before. Technology is the answer to the design and distribution obligations and the target market determinations that are sitting off the back of that, which basically says the product's fit for purpose. Yeah. I think a lot of the lenders are still trying to work out how to write a target market determination, because we use the example, how do you write a target market determination for a credit card? Anyone with a heartbeat? Good luck with that, but yeah, side conversation.
Well, hey, Peter, I think that's sort of case in point on what we were talking about around data standardization. You know, I see even just simple things like that as driving complexity within the broker market, because it's not just brokers are distributors in that framework, and we have to make sure that, you know, we're distributing in line with the target market statement. And now I've got, you know, I'm really scared that we've got lenders describing the same thing in different ways. And then, so how do we build training and guidelines for our brokers so that they're able to comply with these requirements? And it's, you know, there is this underlying, you know, underlying sort of diversity or sort of differences in approaches on things that don't really necessarily drive a huge amount of value. I think the gremlins have got your internet connection, Peter. I guess I'll just take free reign over. Oh, I'm sure Peter will join us back in a little bit. I think, yeah, so, you know, just talking about, I guess, technology and our approaches to it, and it's you know, that there's only so much that. Ooh. Are you back, Peter? Well, I think that there's sort of, I guess, another facet to it, to what we do, and some of the questions that have sort of come up today are really about, you know, how do we work better with lenders, and how do we make sure that, you know, how do we sort of work with them to make sure that the changes that are driven aren't so diverse and aren't, you know, 5 ways of asking the same question, and how do we make sure that, you know, we can deliver a consistent customer experience in what we do. And I can hear your microphone, Peter, rustling around.
Yeah, I'm back here. I don't know if you can see me. My technology dongle just died in the arse, so my Wi-Fi crapped itself. and hopefully you can see and hear me. I don't know what's going on here, but it completely died. So.
Look, I can hear you, but I can't see you. But I can just imagine your face for now.
Yeah, I'm not happy. So can you still hear us there, Martin?
Yep, I've got you loud and clear.
Yeah, okay, all right, well, we will continue on, and now my video link is completely dropped out, so, oh, there we go, we're back again. Yeah. So have I got video?
Yeah, we've got you.
Righto, I'll throw some bricks at things later. So, all right, let's continue on. Apologies for that. It's what happens. It's been a bit of a dodgy internet signal today. Yeah, you get that. Hey, mate, a question that's come from Adelaide. Look, Adelaide's full of questions, my friend. So, where did you get the name Lindy? I know it's not a tech question. How did you come up with that name?
Whoa, I think everybody likes to claim a good idea.
Go for it. It was yours.
Look, I'm not going to go there because it wasn't mine. It was within our founder group. Sebastian, I think he'll probably like me mentioning him. Came up with the he's come up. We've been working together for a while now, and we've had sort of a couple of different brand names and businesses together. And I think he's laid claim to almost every one of our business names. And I don't know where he gets it from. I think it's his morning coffee. But look, it was one of those sort of really interesting moments where, if you think about it from a brand perspective, as you're trying to drive traffic, as you're trying to get your brand out there, you want something that's recognizable and easy for people to understand. When they think about the name, they should be able to sort of resonate with what it is you do in the market. If you're on a radio ad, you're talking about a business, you're trying to give someone your email address, it should be easy enough for people to spell. And sort of serendipitously, we came up with this idea, or he came up with this idea, and the name was available. So that's pretty much it.
Away you ran. Excellent. Mate, a couple of other questions I've got here, but this one's not really a tech question, but I'll be interested in your thoughts on this, only because it is a very much an industry issue at the moment, and that is on the topic of cashbacks. Within what you guys do you find that cashbacks are problematic? I think most brokers are saying they're challenging, and I get it, but to me, it's up to the broker to do the maths and say, well, by the time you refinance and you pay this cost and then you set up the new loan and that cost, does your $3,000 get you in front or not? So there's a mathematical piece to this as well. But I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are in relationship to that.
I think problematic is not how I would term cashbacks. I think more and better propositions for customers are always good things. I think the challenges it poses for us in the industry is I think back to, I guess, some of the regulators' sort of current activities around continuous monitoring and how do brokers meet their bid requirements. That and sort of interrelationship with cashback is particularly problematic to sort of justify and to go through. When you think about cashback terms being different lender to lender, how do you capture all of that? And I think you're right, Peter. Like it's the maths to sort of determine whether it's better or worse off for the customer is. Look, it's not hard, but cash in your pocket today is better than money tomorrow. Are you calculating that based on your average life of loan? Because we know the customer is going to refinance in a handful of years. Are you calculating it based on your proposed loan term? How do those things work? I think that's where additional offers, and I don't think this is I want to be clear. I don't think this is a lender issue. I think that the regulatory framework around the non-rate driven, inputs into bid are what sort of comes to the top of my mind when we start thinking about cashbacks.
Yeah, and I guess too, the other thing that I look at it after being more than a couple of decades in the game, there's always something. Like if I go back way before cashbacks were even a name, it was basic home loans, and then it became introductory interest rates. So you had a basic home loan that didn't have a redraw, didn't have anything. And then you got these first 12 months introductory rates came after that. Today it's cashbacks. It's always a something. And I think as an industry, one, we have to adapt with it a bit, but also up the ante on our knowledge to argue the good, the bad, and the ugly. Now, back in the day, in 1993, I established Ram's Home Loans first sales office in Hurstville, Sydney. So back in 1993. And we had to debate with borrowers why getting a home loan from a sheep was all good, right? So there's always some argument to be had or debate to be had somewhere. But we got through it. Hey, the other thing, a question that has come through from the people who are watching, this one's not from Adelaide, this is from our broader audience. What do you consider as essential in technology for brokers in today's market? You got a thought on that? What do you think is essential in tech? Obviously, good internet speed's one. I'm working on it.
Look, I sort of come back to our view on technology for brokers is, as you think about the things that we do, as you think about the loan application becoming more and more complex, as you think about the regulatory requirements, certainly within the last, there's been huge change since I've been involved in the industry in the last sort of decade. The ability to collect information from the customer in a quick and easy manner, the ability to leave notes and the ability to sort of minute or sort of document your conversations, etc. You need a tool that really enables you to do that. So some of the, a lot of the times what I find is, you're getting information from customers that, they could just be entering themselves. They're filling in a form. They're providing you with documents. They may as well just be, on their phone or on their laptop. And I think it's, we're sort of at a stage now where, having better consumer-facing tools so that they can self-service, they can help you do, what would otherwise take you an hour in an interview. So by the time you get to an interview, you've actually got their information in front of you that you can actually add value to. That's what I see as pretty critical to brokers today.
Yeah. I don't disagree. And the other thing too, I guess, and I'm going back a bit on the past conversations about the banks and lenders though, but the other big pain point for everybody at the moment are the SLA. So the imbalance between going into a branch and they do it in a couple of days versus going through a broker and it can still take, well, I'm hearing certain major banks are saying 4 days, maybe 8 days, but everybody's still experiencing 20. Who knows where the bloody line is? Take it from the practitioners more so, but technology should be an answer to that though, shouldn't it?
Well, I think there's two parts to that. I think technology is an answer to bring in service levels as part of the product recommendation, so you can actually, have an honest conversation with your customer based on what we see, based on their criteria. So bringing that back in and helping us meet our bid requirements as well as helping us better meet our customer needs. When you start thinking about, I think some of the numbers miss the underlying nuances around, I guess, like, lender to lender, here's a complex and here's a loan above 80% LVR, etc. And there's different turnaround time expectations. There's different turnaround time expectations if it's, initial assessment versus, follow-up documents and stuff like that. It's a pretty large and complicated thing. And I think the first part for us as brokers, if you assume that you can't change the side of the funnel, is to get more information so we can have an honest and informed conversation with our customer. That's the first part, and I think that's how technology helps in that part. Look, I'm not a, I don't want to sort of, I'm not a specialist in bank implementation and the internal bank processes, but absolutely. The same way I look at a technology that to sort of save time out of a broker's day, there's no reason we couldn't look at technology in the same way that saves time out of the internal processing timeframes. But I don't truly profess to understand where the bottlenecks are.
Yeah, and mate, look, I'm no expert in this, but I do have an opinion and I'm happy to express them. It's all good. It's all good. Well, mate, we've probably tested your voice to its limits, and we might start and call it quits and say thank you for taking time out of your very, very busy day, especially this era, where you've got not just Lindy to worry about, you've got the whole Aussie group and everything else you're doing. Mate, I really appreciate your conversation. It was fantastic. We got some great feedback from people, and Adelaide says thanks very much. They're very appreciative of your conversation. They've been listening in at the Better Business Summit in Adelaide. And mate, I really appreciate your time. So thank you so much. Look forward to catching up soon, and take care of yourself and rest that voice, eh?
Yeah, we'll do. Thanks, Peter. I appreciate the invite, and always happy to talk if anyone wants to over a beer, maybe in the Gold Coast in July, right?
Yeah, most certainly, my friend, most certainly. Gold Coast in July. We might have a couple to make sure your throat's feeling better.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right, take care. See you later. Bye. Oh, drop my pen. All righty. Thanks very much to Martin Lam for joining us today. A great sport, and he wasn't feeling the best, so that's always challenging. But anyhow, thank you all for joining us. Thanks to everybody in Adelaide at the Better Business Summit for joining us today as well. And thank you to all of you around the country for joining in our conversations. And of course, as we go into our next session, keep an eye open for what's going to follow with next month's Q&A with Whitey. It's going to be a special one as we roll it out. And a special thanks to our sponsors. And I didn't get the opportunity because of my tech slowdown earlier to mention, but a special thanks to ALI, Bluestone, Finstro, Prosper, Heartland, Suncorp, who is our wellness sponsor. Love them. And don't forget, with our wellness issue, we have our confidential counselling program. So go to the FBAA's website to get more information on that. If you're feeling you've got problems with, could be depression, anxieties, financial stress, it's free to you as an FBAA member. Go get it. Proudly supported by Suncorp. And we have OnDeck, Speedy, Affordable Staff, Insurance Advisor Nest, Lend, Pepper Money, Strive Financial, AAMC, Effie, and Credit Fix Solutions and Travel Loans. Thank you to all of those wonderful people that keep us all going. So for now, that's it from me. You're going to get a little email after us for those who've attended online with a little survey there and your CPD allocation for you. Give us some feedback on the survey results for us. It just helps us to fine tune what we're doing. We do appreciate you joining us today. Take care of yourselves, and we've got a lot more to talk about very soon, and we'll see you then. Bye for now. Cheers.